Welcome to this episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. I'm Paula Eddy Wilcox, and I'm delighted to welcome our guests for the second time, where we're looking at their take on the game and leadership aspect of the podcast. Who knows what we might find out, because we all look at this differently, and it's always so interesting to see what the guests have in store for me when I turn up, because we never plan this in advance. So I hope you're as excited as me. Let's get into it, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome to today's episode of Game of Leadership with the fantastic Matteo Gori. Welcome again from Italy.
Thank you.
Delighted to have you. Gosh, my head is buzzing as I reflected on what we discussed in the first episode, but I have to bring focus. So today we are going to look at what Game of Leadership might mean for you as a leader, because when we think about game and leadership in the same sentence, we don't necessarily think they go together. And, you know, from my experience so far, talking to lots of fabulous guests, everybody's got a different idea of what that means to them. And I can certainly look at it from a few different lenses myself. So between all of us and all those different views and ideas and lenses, you know, it's an incredible subject to explore, really. So just to remind everybody, Matteo, you are the Global Director of Marketing at Barilla Group in Italy. And you just have an amazingly rich background. So if they haven't already listened to last week's episode, I encourage you to do so you get some background on Matteo's leadership story. But today, let's dig in. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Super. All right. So big question then. What is it that game and leadership conjured up in your mind as you thought about it?
Well, I was thinking back also of maybe of a specific example to give, but before I get into that, you know, it's very interesting. Leadership is one of these words that has been changing its meaning, I would say, to a certain extent. So if I think back to the job market where I started, which wasn't that long ago, it's 15 years ago, 16 years ago, leaders were used to look like something completely different from what they are today. And also, and the role of leadership and the relationship between the leader and the team around him or her has completely evolved, and it will continue to evolve. So I think that the game part of it is super fundamental, because it's one of the few ways to, keep us up to date with all that is evolving on that matter, and also to keep a little bit of a fun note around it, and make sure that we don't take ourselves too serious to a certain extent, which sometimes we risk of doing.
Yes.
And so I think they're very much interrelated, and we probably need more of game and the game side of leadership the more we go forward. Also, because if I think of the newer generations approaching the professional world and the job market, they have that into them, and the only way to connect with them at a very deep way is to have some element of it plugged in. So I think it's very important. And if you want, I was thinking of let's say of a case of a team building that we did a few years ago, and I could describe that just to say one example of what I mean.
Yeah, well, I would love to do that, Matteo, but I just wanted to sort of pick up on that changing leadership that you mentioned, because you're absolutely right. And it's like many things in life. If you don't choose to evolve, you get left behind. Yeah. And the changing landscape of leadership is absolutely one of those things. And, you know, I would love to say with 100% conviction and confidence that gone are the days of the old sort of directive leadership. I tell you what to do and you do it without question. Because, you know, here and there, some of that is still existing. But what we are seeing, and I love that we're seeing more and more of this emerging, is I think in the first episode you described, I forget your exact words, but it was something like bringing the team along with you. And it was when you were talking about your experience where you've been given the chance to try a startup within Barilla Group. It had already been going 2 years and you sort of got it to where it needed to be, then launched and nothing worked. So you brought the team along with you to recreate it from the ground up again and tweak it and make it work in the right way so that it now exists as a profit-making part of the organization. So that kind of different way of leading, which is much more inclusive. And of course, we've got the huge diversity and inclusion and equality agenda globally going on, all sorts of different things, to be able to embrace that in small places, like playing our own part, you know, builds up to make that whole that will help change globally the way things happen. So I just wanted to make a nod to that.
And if I can build on that, I think that one of the key words, let's say, that I see sitting next to leadership is engagement.
Yes.
Of the people around you, eventually of the organization, that being a team, a business unit, a company, depending on, of course, on the role, and eventually of the stakeholders outside of your organization, being them clients, suppliers, NGOs, etc. So there is a keyword, that's the keyword engagement, which, to be honest with you, probably in the previous style of leadership, let's say, could be also put aside. The directive, assertive way, and people had to do what they were, told, etc., etc. That is not there anymore. And the risk of not getting the leadership right is that the people will simply turn off. I mean, they will still stay in the organization, in the team, or being a supplier, a client, but they will just not be engaged at a very deep level. And that is, to me, it's one of the things that I've been trying to avoid all of my life. That's to me the perfect recipe for disaster. You might not see the commercial disaster happening because it might take a few years. It might be there might be some resilience to it, but that's where I don't want to be. So I try to have all the people around me truly engaged with me, with the task, with the challenge, with the context, etc. With very different styles and with very personal ways of engaging. That is also been changing a lot. But I think leadership has a lot to do with that. And I mean, the usual wording, I mean, if you want to be a leader, you got to carry people with you. To me, it has now everything to do with engagement.
That's really an insightful way of looking at it, Matteo. And as you were talking there, my brain went straight back to purpose, which is, of course, how we met. Because if your team, all of you together, don't collectively believe in the purpose that you're working towards, so as you say, if they're not engaged in what you're working towards and they don't feel they have a stake within that, you said it, a recipe for disaster. I think that's a great way to describe it. And more organizations are beginning to waken to the need for being a purposeful organization and for the teams within to be purposeful teams, because the productivity and the achievements of the company, therefore the bottom line, all benefit as a result of that approach. It's incredible. And there's some recent Ernst & Young research on all of that, but I'm not going to go into that now because I'm dying to know what it is you're going to share with us in terms of that sort of game and team building type exercise that you found really helpful in your leadership journey.
Okay. So I remember of one episode. This was the spring of 2015. We had been working with my team, and my team in the broader meaning of it, not only the people reporting to me, but the people around me. We have been working on that startup that we were mentioning earlier on in the previous episode. And we were about to have a big milestone, like a commercial presentation of the whole exercise. And I remember organizing this little team building, this little offsite for the team. Actually, I had some resistance about doing that thing in that moment because we were so busy and we had so many things to do. And the big event was, I don't remember if it was the week after or something. So a couple of my people came to me saying, do we really have to do it now? We have so, I mean, our agenda is so packed. And I said, well, I think we actually need it now because of that. I mean, we are about to go live. We're about to, go to the next level. So we need to reinforce our engagement a little bit. And so we went into this winery. We played a number of games just outside of Parma, where the Barilla headquarters is.
I'm with you already, Matteo.
Yeah.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah, of course, in the afternoon we had also, the visit and the wine tasting, etc. But this happened in the morning. So we played a number of games. And I remember one in particular. There was a colleague of ours acting, let's say, as a moderator. He's also a coach and psychologist. So it's a perfect, let's say, was perfect for the role. And the game is called Scroll of Identities, like a scroll. So you play like this. You basically sit down, ideally in a round formation. Each person has to present himself or herself through his name, basically. So you play with the letters of your name, using every letter as the initial of a definition of yours. And the definition can be very banal, like Matteo. M can stand for male, A can stand for adult. So you can make it quite crispy, or you can make it quite generic, as much as you want. But so there is a limit that everyone has to play with the letters of his or her own name.
Right.
Then each person takes a A3 sheet, blank sheet, and writes the name on the top right corner. So this is going to be the scroll of Matteo. So you scroll the paper and you give it to someone, and that person has to write 1, 2, maximum 3 characteristics of yours, like adjectives that define you. Ideally, this person should write it in a totally anonymous way. So everyone should use the same color. You don't give it to the one to your right. You give it to somebody crossing the round, the circle, and the same happens, etc., etc. So everyone receives per time one sheet, one scroll, the one of Matteo, the one of Paul, etc. And every person has to write 1, 2, 3 characteristics of that person.
Yeah.
So when this passing and crossing is over, and we were a team of 10 people, more or less, which is the perfect size, but you can make it with smaller or bigger teams. You receive it back, okay? And you receive your own scroll of identities. This is what people see in you. The ones that know you, maybe, and the ones that know you less, the ones that have been working with you for years, and the ones that have been working with you for a few weeks or months. So first of all, this is a gift to you. It's like a mirroring exercise where people tell you what they see in you. Then there is the second step, let's say, the second phase, where the moderator, and again, if it's a coach, is even better. So it can play with that. The moderator takes each scroll and gives some comments. He has to give these comments in a purely descriptive way. So I see Matteo's definition, or Matteo's adjectives are this, and this. I see this word coming up 2, 3, 4 times. So it must mean that Matteo is truly, let's say, proactive. Okay. So he plays a little bit with the most recurring characteristic of yours, the one that the people have seen the most. And then the moderator can play with it even to the next level to say, okay, so Matteo is proactive, Paula is energetic, whatever. I mean, the ones that the word is repeated the most. So the team now knows that when they need proactivity, they should turn to Matteo. When they need energy, they should turn to Paula. When they need being precise, they should turn to Linda, etc. So it's a little bit a mirroring exercise, which gives some ideas to the team on how to leverage on each personality to make the most out of it.
Yes.
And of course, you might have one scroll of identity of a person where there is no recurring word. I mean, each of the others wrote a completely different thing.
Yes.
So that might be the case. And again, the moderator could play with it, saying, but so this person is probably brings balance. He's probably the one, at ease with very different characteristics, with very different dynamics. So when the team needs some balance, etc., turn to that person, because you see that person doesn't have a clearly emerging single skill or identity, but it has multiple ones.
Yeah.
And so that's it. So the game is called Scroll of Identities, and I remember at the end of that day, a couple of the people that had come to me saying, can we postpone this day because we are so busy, the big event, etc., came to me saying, we're so glad that we did it. We now know each other. First of all, we know ourselves better thanks to that mirroring exercise, and then we know each other so much better, and we know how the team has these different angles to play with based on their people that make it. So it was quite a fun moment, and I think it's just an example, it's just a case, but I think it has a lot to do with the game, the leadership, the engagement things that we're discussing just now.
Absolutely, Matteo, and thank you for sharing that with us. There's so much richness that you clearly took from that, because it's obviously stuck in your mind so much so you can say exactly word for word what happened, and be able to recreate that in the future with another team should you choose to. But it's another beautiful way of finding people's strengths, because what we see in ourselves is not always what other people see. Plus, we're I say we're our own harshest critics, if you like. We can be a little bit unkind to ourselves and not always see the great that we bring to the world. We often see only the negative stuff, the stuff that goes wrong. You know what it's like. And having an exercise like that really helps draw out those strengths and attributes that people like about you as a leader, and let's face it, albeit that it was your team, they're all leading themselves as well, and leaders within their own right in that circle that you described as you're exchanging the papers, and what an interesting way to do it. So can you remember some of the words that came out? And I wonder if curious was among them.
I'm sure that there was curious. I remember there was quite a repetition for something around the clear, let's say, the clear vision, setting the pathway for the others to act, not the times of the single person doing everything are over, and thanks for that. So I remember about the clarity of what was needed. I remember also they were mentioning, let's say, my ability to cope with pressure a little bit. So, you might have to go in front of the CEO or whatever, and I would seem at ease with that. And as we said in the first episode, when you are 6 or 7 and you are the cashier of your parents' shop, you develop a little bit of that. You gotta be at ease with people and money, which is always, a sensitive topic to a certain extent. So yeah, and the thing that I liked the most about that was, of course, the mirroring exercise, but even more how can the team leverage on each different member, turning to that person because of those characteristics. So really bringing the team as a one, and really bringing the team as a single person with multiple aspects, as we all are. So that was very, very powerful. As you said, sometimes we don't know ourselves very well. Sometimes we are too harsh, and I remember I felt so happy that I had a team with so much different personalities, because they were points of strength for the different moments we were going to face. We might need precision in mastering numbers. Okay, there was one person. We might need creativity. Okay, there was that person. We might need energy. That was very enriching, and it was very empowering, let's say. And I was thinking back about, we were discussing just a moment ago on engagement and how important it is, and it's of paramount importance now, even with the hybrid working, smart working, remote working, etc. People need to feel engaged, even if they might not, see each other for some time physically. They might work from home, from the office, from somewhere else, etc. Keeping that level of deep connection is crucial. Otherwise, people are gonna carry on the tasks, but they're not gonna be with you, and it makes a hell of a difference.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you reminded me of something then, and as you were talking, it's gone out of my head. I'm sure it'll come back to me again, but it is, oh yes, it was just learning about the preferences within a team and being able to leverage those and celebrate that diversity within the team as a strength. Because goodness only knows, if you brought in a team that was all the same as there'd be major things that were falling through the gaps. To have that diverse team that all bring something different is really building a team for success. And the fact that you were able to do that together as a team and understand those dynamics, understand who you could go to for which thing, whether it was engagement or a process or some organization or seeing the opportunity or curiosity. It's amazing what additional dynamics in the positive that can bring to a team.
And now that you say it, you actually make me realize that I hadn't realized that, but I'm doing the same with my current team, as I've been a little bit rebuilding it in the last 1.5 years, bringing some people in. And one of the people that has been working with me for 2 years just moved to a different job, so I need to replace her. I've been doing exactly that, but I had not thought that that was the driver. I've been looking for sparks different from me and different from each other, to build the chemistry instead of uniformity, to build a chemistry that would maybe take a bit longer to get us up to speed, because of course different personalities might need to know each other and get to like each other, but then being much stronger when the bumps into the road happened, or the challenges arrive.
Yeah, I'll get it in the wrong order probably, but that forming, storming, norming, performing type scenario going on there. But well, I'm really glad to help you connect the dots there, and we might dig into that into the next episode. But absolutely brilliant to talk to you again, Matteo. As always, super fascinating, super insightful. You've got so much knowledge and experience and curiosity to share with us as our audience, but also with the world, and of course Barilla Group. I feel they're super, and this is where luck does come in. They are super lucky to have you. So with that, thank you so much for today. We will be back next week for our third episode with Matteo, where we will be looking at those pivotal moments that make Matteo the leader that he is today. Thank you again, Matteo, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. I always think the game episode is one of my favourites because we get a real insight to our guests' take on their ideas of how games and leadership fit together. Every one of them is different, and just when I think there isn't another take that we haven't thought of or covered, one of our guests comes up with something totally different and unique. It's really exciting. Look, now it's your turn. See what you think, see what resonated with you most, and as always, I encourage you to reflect on what you've heard and see what that might mean for your leadership moving forwards. I'm Paula Eddie Wilcox, and this is Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. I really look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye for now.